Hello, and welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about second thought. You might know that I have reacted to second thought in the past, if you're a fan or just someone who's looked at this channel in the past. And the thing is that I have also taken a look in a more critical way. And this time, I'm reacting to somebody who is reacting to second thought, and they're reacting to a critical way to see, is it fair or is it unfair? Because sometimes it's, to be fair, there's a route of criticism that it just isn't quite fair, and I think that does occur. So,
the direction that second thought's been going lately has been incredibly alarming. But I think that
yeah, I mean that's been. Yeah.
The direction that second thought's been going lately has been incredibly alarming. But I think that this was one of the most blatant displays of propaganda that he's put out recently. And I'll show you why.
Oh yeah, you're not playing the sound. And those are the...
And I just realized my desktop audio is muted. I'm very good at this.
This episode is brought to you by
Yeah, I understand. Those are the problems with streaming.
News.
By the way, don't particularly like our news. I've tried it in the past, but that's just an opinion.
Authoritarianism, the practice of eating only people who have published books. Wait, that's not right. Authoritarianism, truly one of the words of all time. A decadent 7 syllables long and wonderfully vague. If you've ever had a conversation about politics, and if you're watching this channel, I'm sure you have, you've likely heard someone use the term, or maybe you've even used it yourself.
So
it's
far,
popular in pretty much every corner of the mainstream political spectrum. Liberals, progressives, red centrists, and even some people, anarchists and libertarian socialists. But what is
So like already off the bat,
wait,
the smugness at which he talks about this, and the
Sorry, 1 second.
libertarian socialist? But what is
so like already off the bat.
I'm sure you have. You've likely heard someone use the term, or maybe you've even used it yourself. It's popular in pretty much every corner of the mainstream political spectrum. Liberals, progressives, red centrists, and even some people, anarchists and libertarian socialists. But what is
So like
They were doing this thing where you
already off the bat,
play it really fast. Where you
smugness at which he talks about this,
They
and the
just
dismissal of it, immediately tells you where he's going, and gives you a pretty good sense of where he actually.
I will say, to be fair, there is presentation. Like, if I was like, and today 50,000 people were brutally murdered by Israel. It's like, okay, you're not actually happy with that. That would be psychotic. Some people, to be clear, are. But you, as an individual, in this hypothetical situation, are not happy, okay? So, I will say, to be fair, just because you've smug this doesn't mean you actually are smug about the thing. It can be just a presentation for the video, which is just, let's talk about death. You can see that I'm really, really happy. I'm not actually happy, but you know what I mean. So I will say there's a certain amount of unfeelingness there.
Means on it. Because a lot of the time when people say, like, authoritarianism means nothing, tanky means nothing, it's not actually that they mean nothing, it's that they want to obfuscate what these words mean because they have no problem with these.
And what gives it so much weight in the political discourse? Well, that's what this video is about. We've got a pretty poor understanding of what
It's not that it means nothing. It's that it's very murky in its meaning. So some people...
is here in the West, but I bet we can fix that.
agree and
Let's start with the generally accepted definition. Authoritarianism, favoring or enforcing strict obedience to authority, especially that of the government, at the expense of personal freedom. Okay, this is a pretty bad definition if we're being honest. It mentions the government in there, but doesn't really commit to being political, just kind of when you want people to follow the rules. That's not super helpful when we're trying to nail down a heavily used term, and one that deals with some serious topics.
That's not a great critique of
So like I'll agree with him on this. Like this definition itself is pretty nebulous. And I think it's a problem.
Yeah, but once again, you can say this definition is bad, and it kind of is bad, but it's not.
Use things that have a nebulous definition.
Great.
It's why I've stopped using the term authoritarianism as much. Because when you use words with a very nebulous definition, it allows people to obfuscate what you mean. Because favoring or enforcing strict obedience to authority, especially that of the government, you could say that about basically every government in the world. It's when we get into the degrees of it that it becomes a problem. And for instance,
strict is something. For example, in the United States, you can do lots of things, and the government is fine with them, depending on whom you are.
in this video, he defends North Korea and tries to place it on the same plane as the United States. When North Korea
You could
has
also argue, but also it's very, very, very strict with some of the drug laws. So.
political prisoner camps and very much crack down on anyone having open political positions that are against the rule of the Workers' Party of Korea.
Okay, so what if we expand it to include how people generally use the term? Generally speaking, when someone uses the word authoritarian, they are often, but not always, using it as a term to demonize a system that is different from their own, regardless of the facts. They're using it as a synonym for totalitarian, a word you don't really hear much anymore. It's sort of fallen by the wayside in favor of authoritarian, kind of like using the word commie as a slur has been superseded by tanky in the last few years.
No. Because a communist will only ever use the word commie in a, laughing way, while they may well use the word tanky to describe somebody who they don't particularly like, or that they find, slightly stupid,
I'm glad that people say tanky instead of commie, because there's nothing wrong with communists, but there is something wrong with tanky. But the fact that he just called it a slur is the most white boy who wants to be oppressed thing I've ever heard in my life.
Same idea.
To be fair, there are, it's like, you're evil. It's like, yeah, nothing's going to happen from that. Like, you've just bought yourself a ticket to being tortured land, and nothing's going to happen to me by calling me evil. Like, there's no result from that. So you are calling someone something not nice, but it's also, true, and doesn't actually hurt them. In fact, may help them.
Both of these words, authoritarian and totalitarian, have been leveled at fascism and communism, often in a direct attempt to inflate the two. This is largely due to the US's extreme anti-communism post-World War II.
Not necessarily, because you see, the thing is, if I directly attack the USSR, and I attack them specifically around the time Stalin comes around, and I say that's authoritarian, I can technically say I'm not attacking communism, because I didn't attack Lenin, did I? So you can't just go, oh, the US attacked Lenin, the US attacked communism in general, and they do, to be clear, they do. And when you're like, oh, no, they do, objectively. If you They just do. Anyway, the point is, but you can label that on the likes of Stalin, because when you look at it, like, okay, but the USSR is clearly a nation that fell really quickly. Like, it had a short period of time when it was like, oh, that's something. The revolution was somewhat successful, and then it sort of just, and there's a partial thing. I think that there's definitely there's a few things. There's resentment around the likes of when it shifted to the communist government, at least the communist, they give a bunch of land to Germany to pull out of the war and all that sort of stuff. And that does lead to a little bit of a tension there. And when you have this sort of internal tension where it's not about the economy, it's about literally the nation. Do we give away these things? And to be fair, a good chunk of things they gave away weren't Russia. They were Russian colonies and things Russia had taken over. So arguably, you're just kind of being an imperialist if you're against that. But the point is, some people were. And those people are not necessarily saying that they're against communism. They're just arguing about other things. And that sort of internal tension causes a thing. And that's why you have this sort of weird thing where it's like, oh, the USSR technically sort of fell twice. You had Stalin get into power and then subsequent leaders who, decided, you know what, this whole communism thing, I was thinking, how about we do that, but after my buddies take a little bit of a look, So, how about that, Like, it just feel like maybe we should come for, it's like, but that's, the whole point is, aren't you just replacing the aristocracy at that point, pretty much, Anyway, and that's the thing you have there. And then after the USSR falls apart, anyway, to be fair, communists are interesting in the way that, sorry, not communists, tankies are interesting, to use the word, in the sense that you will see people say, oh, the USSR was broken up and this occurred. And they often they are right, they're describing things that occurred. But the thing is, the USSR breaking up, interestingly, almost didn't change that much in a sense. Like, it did, but you know what I mean? Within the nation itself, the actual political construct of it, it's like, well, similar to Nazi Germany, the Nazi law, the people who were involved in Nazi empire, most of them were pretty fine. Some of them, to be clear, did have sticky ends, but for a lot of people who were Nazis, or at least, commercial business supporters of Nazis, were perfectly fine afterwards. And all these things are sort of like, well, what actually occurred there? And that's the sort of thing you level thing, which is, technically speaking, you can label the USSR as authoritarian because it just kind of, it was. But you're not labeling communism as authoritarian. To be clear, America would probably do that, but, it's unfortunate because the example is bad because it was kind of authoritarian though,
To the point that they
So chat, pay attention to this because this is mastercraft propagandism.
been their former friends, the people without whom the Allies could not have won the war, with what
That's technically speaking true, although I would argue maybe if they'd fucking invaded Germany when, Germany began to break the terms of the agreement that they'd set out after the First World War, one of the terms being you don't rearm yourself, maybe then they wouldn't have had a fucking war. So, arguably, no. The problem, you see, is that Germany's ideology wasn't really that much different to the ideology of England and all these other countries, which was that, basically effectively world domination. Except there's one small problem. Germany didn't have a plan to have England or France or America factor in any way in controlling that. And that's the point that they disagree on. So that's why you have the likes of England going, yeah, you can take that land because we don't control it, so fuck it, go ahead. We'd do it if we, we'd want to take the land if it was ours. If we didn't have Ireland and Ireland was overtaken, we'd take it if there was no resistance. Like, go ahead. But once they start going, you're gonna take us too, but we agreed. You'd stop. We'd give you all this if we don't own, and then you'd stop. But no, you stop there, right? That's what you do. So my point is that if they just done the proper thing and just combated fascism, things would have been okay. They wouldn't have needed the likes of the USSR. But yes, technically speaking, the Americans needed the USSR needed the Americans.
What most people believe to be
So, did you see that? We go back and I show you what he just did.
with what most people believe to be the greatest is largely due to the US's extreme anti-communism post-World War II, to the point that they lump in their former friends, the
So he shows Stalin on screen. Stalin shakes hands with, I believe, Winston Churchill. And then,
To be fair, Winston Churchill is also a mass murderer who's directed for thousands upon thousands, if not millions of people to die. So, to be clear, I don't mean World War II. I mean outside of that. World War II is fair because, yes, you're going to die. Now, mistakes were made before the war was officially declared that are certainly on the ground of English politicians. But within the war itself, it's kind of fair. Stupid decisions get made, but it's like, it is a war. But I mean beyond that. So, to be fair, quite like-minded individuals. Once again, it's the thing that I've said before, which is Winston Churchill is very like Adolf Hitler. Winston Churchill is very like Stalin, except the one thing is they don't agree about who should be in power. That's the thing. That's the problem with a dictatorship in a way, where even if you're very pleased with the dictator you have in power, well, what happens if I come along and go, you know what, if I was to just take over after this person, whether I help them along the way to no longer being alive or I just wait, I could certainly use that power. Whether or not this person is abusing their power, you will always have this issue of, well, who takes over afterwards? that person's very, very, very likely to be a very bad person. Doesn't mean that you know that they are, but you know.
Second thought was like, they abandoned their former friends. He's implying that Stalin is a friend. He doesn't say it outright,
Ally.
but he paints a picture, and he speaks using his footage.
People without whom the Allies could not have won the war with what most people believe to be the greatest evil in history. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's all well and good. People use a political term vaguely to demonize their opponents. Big surprise. But we still need some specifics. What exactly makes a state authoritarian?
I mean, once again, the reason why they fought a war with Nazi Germany was because Nazi Germany was like, okay, we're going to take all the territory. That includes you and your territories. That's why. Not because of any policy. This is a bit of a complicated thing there, you know.
Well, if you have scrolled through the comments of just about any political video that talks about socialism, you'll find
It's self-censored to go, me, if you look at my videos. But, you know, it somewhat could be considered a joke.
people ready with their pre-written list of objections, usually bundled under the prime objection.
So I'll give my own definition. Any state that makes political dissent illegal, I would classify as authoritarian. Any state where the power of one political party is enshrined legally in the Constitution as the ruling power. Yeah, I think that would be pretty simple.
I go further.
That's authoritarian. Things on that list include the existence of large prisons or labor camps, a covert police force.
It's dangerous to specifically have a confirmed definition so a country can go, well, we're not technically authoritarian according to this definition. You kind of did murder people who dissented, though, didn't you? Well, no, maybe we did, maybe we didn't. Who knows? It's not as clear as like Saudi Arabia. They definitely did, but like, no, I don't. That allegedly doesn't work with Saudi Arabians. It's just like, nah. Anyway, sorry, Saudi Arabia. But anyway, point is, not fuck off. But the thing is, they just murder so many people, don't they? The point is that I'm making is that just because I'm just saying definitions somewhat dangerous when you use part of that. You know?
That's authoritarian. Things on that list include the existence of large prisons or labor camps, a covert police force, state media.
Cue whataboutisms. Cue them. Anytime he brings it up, it's going to be like, oh, but what about America? They don't have any defense for what they actually believe. It's just going to be whataboutisms.
I mean, NPR isn't really state media, is it? Like that's the whole thing. Like when Elon Musk decided to label NPR as state media, they were like, no, though, we're not really state media, though, are we?
A strongman leader, censorship, that sort of thing. And to be fair, all those things do sound scary, and none of them are ideal.
To be fair, people have said that America under Trump was very, 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 very similar to an authoritarian state. But in a way, you're like, okay, but so what?
I think we can all agree that
Like it wasn't before. Like, you know, this is the thing which is it often happens where it's like, okay, but think about before this person. Was it any different? You know, was it any different with Bush? Was that really something that makes much sense? You know.
we'd love to live in a society where prisons didn't need to exist. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
That's an interesting thing. I remember if you watched my previous reaction to Second Thought, I'm not sure if that may not be my previous reaction. It may be actually a reaction before the previous one. But I remember Second Thought discussed prison abolition because one of the things I said was, if you are a person who is arguing for, socialism, you're saying, oh well, don't you worry about socialism, and you're saying basically you would be okay. And it's like, okay, are the wealthy who've objectively, they've effectively committed crimes, they've effectively murdered multiple people intentionally? Are those people going to suffer for it? Those were intentional killings they did. Now, they were also, technically speaking, underneath the law and the letter of the law, legal. But under moral sort of, is murder illegal? They broke the law. But not like in a legal, you know what I mean? So that's a bit of an odd thing. That Second Thought in the whole thing of, do you need to be worried, rich people? It's like, oh no, but no, loads of leftists, they're against prisons. They think there should be prison abolition, so you should be fine. And then it's like, authoritarianism. We'd love to be in a world where there was no prisons, but fuck that, like rich people get in the slammer. Like, which is it now, buddy? Which is it? What's the idea? Anyway,
I totally missed that. But did he? Wait a sec. He totally did that. Where was? Authoritarianism is when banned on Twitter.
No.
That's so true.
Censorship.
George Orwell wrote about this.
Censorship. Come on, don't be fair. Don't be unfair, sorry.
And to be fair, all those things do sound scary, and none of them are ideal. I think we can all agree that we'd love to live in a society where prisons didn't need to exist. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
And to be fair, George Orwell kind of like, in a way, was like, oh yeah, that thing you said? You said it, sure. It's not going to get printed. That's not.
Before we go any further, I want to emphasize that I'm not trying to attack anyone here. The objection to authoritarianism is present in a lot of different camps. People may define it a little differently. For example, a libertarian might call seatbelt laws authoritarian, while a liberal might consider the influence of the church on the government authoritarian. Meanwhile, my anarchist friends are yelling from the back of the room that the very existence of a state is authoritarian, and we need to abolish bedtime. Again.
So
that's a joke.
So this is interesting, chat. This is just like when Hakeem did What is a Tanky? Because the point of this video is to come away with the point of this video is to come away from it being like, oh, well, authoritarianism means nothing, so whenever anyone makes this claim, I'm just going to ignore it. Just like whenever anyone uses the word tanky.
I mean, yeah, to be honest, I didn't think this video was particularly good.
They want to obfuscate reality in order to further propagate their own ideology.
Teasing, no offense intended. Okay, we all on the same page? Authoritarianism is a red flag for a lot of people, and there are some specific objections we can consider. So, let's consider them. Here's what we're going to do for the rest of the video. First, we'll look at the list of objections as understood by liberals. And I mean that in the broadest sense. Liberals as in subjects of liberal state.
I will say, for people who look at this and go, we're very American-centric, he's American, Like, keffals, she's not, American. Canadian, right? And then Northern Ireland, right? living. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Not in the conservative versus liberal sense.
So-
Then we'll look at those same objections as understood by the left. Again, pretty broadly speaking. Basically everyone from social democrats and beyond. Then finally, we'll consider a better way to understand authority and authoritarianism. Sound good?
It's a video essay.
All right, liberal friends. I've got a pretty good idea of the kinds of places you feel are authoritarian. Top of the list.
I've
so-
done that, but it's just funny to me when you see videos sort of like music. It's just like it's a music video basically. It's not even you talking at this point. It's just like boom, 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 boom. Like trying to sort of get the feeling of documentary. It's odd because it's
Union, the big one.
that is in a sense almost like propaganda.
Perhaps the target of the most intense smear campaign in history. Then we've got Cuba, China, North
Ooh,
Korea, and likely
sorry,
a
what was
Soviet
that?
Union, the big one. All right, liberal friends. I've got a pretty good idea of the kinds of places you feel are authoritarian. Top of the list, Soviet Union, the big one.
Yeah, but like it is though. It was.
Perhaps the target of the most intense.
Interestingly, it wasn't that much different later on to modern day Russia, a terrible country to live in and full of oligarchs. Except then, when Russia came to effect, it was officially oligarchs.
Smear campaign in history. Then we've got Cuba, China, North Korea, and likely a handful of other projects.
So-
But
wait,
again,
sorry.
perhaps the target of the most intense smear campaign in history. Then we've got Cuba, China.
China is not socialist though. This is actually not a thing where Cuba, I will say, has got shtick in the game and all that stuff. But what's interesting is, here's the thing, right? You can look at the likes of, if you're, now to preface this, I'm not saying I agree with this, but if you're somebody, you can say, okay, so we got ourselves a situation where, you see here, this is China. Now, China is a bit of an interesting one because the USSR is, an example of a state that has had a bit of a few lies told about it. That's true. But it's also true that a lot of people just sort of don't really look at the facts as well. Like, okay, but I know lies are but a little beyond that. So they look at that. And same with North Korea. North Korea is also interesting because you can say, well, there's a media blackout. No one really knows. And there's a lot of people who can gain a lot of money by coming out of North Korea and say, oh, it's really, really bad looking platform and all this sort of stuff. So there's an aspect there you can talk about, right? And that's a thing you can say. That's a counter argument you can say, which is like, okay, sure. And you're not even saying. And then people who say, well, why don't you go to North Korea then? Like, well, I'm not saying it's a good place. I'm just saying it's not their fault, like, the way. It's like, okay, but why would I, go to Victorian England and eat amongst the poor? Well, because I wouldn't go there because, it's not great, It's not their fault. It's not like, it's literally the higher ups. That's the point. You would say, if you're one of these people, you would say, not me. You say, well, no, like, sure. There's an American person who's putting sanctions on them and all this stuff. They don't have any money, so how can they afford all these things, So, like, you can't, I'm not saying I'm going to go there. I'm not saying it's a good place. I'm just saying it's not their fault, It's not the state's fault. No, you can say that, and people would say, well, look at all these reports. And people would go, well, no, they're lies. And you can say all that. And to be fair, that is technically an argument you can make, because from your perspective, it will be, you haven't been to North Korea, you haven't seen all this stuff, and yeah. But the thing is, China is not one of those places. China is not one of those places where you can go, no, it's all lies, guys. Because, look at where the majority of things are made. I'll just look at this mouse. This mouse was made in China. Okay, so do you think that someone was paid really, really well, and just worked just very few hours, just because, they have a good work-life balance and just really, really well paid in great working environments to produce this mouse? Or do you think it might have potentially been slave labor, and if not slave labor, effectively very close to it? We are very close to it. China is the center of some of the most exploited people on the planet, excluding people who don't have as much of industrialization. But beyond that, China is pretty much the most, China's people are the most exploited of any nation of that level of industrialization. But yet, it has billions. It is one of the richest countries in the world. It creates billionaires and has companies that have bought up a chunk of the world's things. If you look at the car industry, Chinese companies own a good chunk of the car industry. If you look at the social media industry, Chinese companies own a good chunk of the social media industry. All of these industries, Chinese companies own a good chunk of the market. So even if you have a European or US or possibly, maybe not even, maybe be on that, maybe Indian, maybe Japanese and all these companies, well, there's a high enough chance that they may be owned, at least in part, by a Chinese company. So, question for you. Does that seem to you like that might be fucking socialism? Or is the only reason why you think that's socialism because it's in the name, and it's technically, where is the intelligence here, Where is the actual thought process here? Why exactly would you think China's socialist? I understand North Korea. You can believe that it's all lies. I can understand the USSR. You can believe that people have been lying to you. You can believe all that. And to be fair, there have been lies told by North Korea. There have been lies told by the USSR. But China is a ready example. The only way that could exist is if all of the people who have said that they're billionaires are actually not Chinese and in fact are living elsewhere. Maybe they're Chinese, but maybe they had to move elsewhere so that they could make their billions. That all the Chinese companies they're not actually Chinese, they're abroad. And every single product, or almost every single product that says made in China was actually lying to you, and it's all being made abroad, not in China at all. It's all a big weird thing. I don't know why they give credit to China. That's That's very odd. That story would break pretty quickly, as anyone who wants to get into the market is like, guys, I remember we all saw that the products are made in China. I actually tried to get products made in China. Turns out they're not made. Like, what will be like? I'm just saying, China's not. It's a very weird thing to me because it's like, how does anyone think of China as socialist? How? Honest question. How? Anyway.
North Korea, and likely a handful of other projects. But I think
So it's important to point these things out because people don't know this shit, right? Like, let's just go back.
then we've got Cuba, China, North Korea.
So you've probably seen these kind of photos all the time. People marching. Sometimes it's children and women. They're holding banners. Sometimes they are like bursting out into tears. And tankies love to use this kind of imagery to be like, if they hate North Korea, why are they doing this?
That's, to be fair, a terrible example because it's like, okay, first of all, national pride occurs in a lot of nations. Look at America then. America has a lot of national pride for sometimes very, very weird nations, very, very weird reasons.
Because they are literally forced to do it.
Yeah.
From the time
But
you
even
are
if you're not forced to do it, even just like, okay, so there are a portion of the population who believe it's good. Okay. There is a portion of the US population, there's a portion of the Irish population, there's a portion of the English population, there's a portion of most populations who do believe that the country is good, even though it is clearly not.
child in North Korea, you are enlisted into what is called a mass organization. A mass organization is an organization that exists outside of the party that further advances the goals of the party. The first of these organizations is the Kim Jong-ilist, Kim Il-sungist Youth Union. You are forced to do these marches. In some cases, like when they're doing big gymnastic things, they literally force children to practice for hours and hours a day to the point of such exhaustion, they collapse. This is all a propaganda show. Using this is such a red flag.
It's very odd, though, because, like, for whom, though? For whom is propaganda? I'm not sure if I'm not even sure you could argue it kind of, like, it's a very odd level of propaganda. Like, oh, yes, let's make everyone think that we force our people to do it, which we are doing. Oh, okay, that seems like it's only going to make things worse.
Because it's either he's stupid and he doesn't know and he's absolutely a useful idiot, or he does know this kind of stuff and he is a manipulative liar who is trying to use this propaganda in order to make people join his ideology.
Yeah, and likely a handful of other projects. But I think it's safe to say that these are the big ones. When you look at any of these projects, it's not difficult to see the one thing they all have in common. They're all socialist. And
They're not, though. They're not. China's not socialist. It's just not. I'm sorry, but it's just not. I don't know why anyone thinks this. I don't know how you can think this. It's interesting, similar to some libertarians, not all of them. Interesting, some libertarians have studied economics, but they haven't studied business. And I do wonder, do some socialists, are they in the same boat? Where they study economics, or they study political psychology, or or politics and society, but they don't study business. Because I think you do need to study business, in a way. I say that possibly because I did. But, it's just like you do get this perception where, like, okay, but think about that from a capitalist perspective. Well, how come China is the center of commerce? Not of commerce, of production. Because cheap labor. It's cheap. Very cheap. It makes very little sense to ship a product all across the world from China. Like, sure, you get access to the Indian market. Except, do you, though? Because India is not too much of a fan of China. So do you really get access to the Indian market? Do you really? No. Your main markets are going to be Europe and America. For consumption of final goods. And if that's the case, why exactly would you make shipping distances so long? Like, surely, if the Chinese people are getting paid a good wage, you just say, no, fuck that. I'm gonna set up factories in every like smaller factories in all these places. Because I just pay a bunch of factories in America, to pay a bunch of factories in Europe, cut down those shipping costs. Pretty cheap, and also it means you can more put a bigger stamp on your environmental goals. That's shipping. Except they don't do that because you wouldn't do that because cheap labor is available in China, including possibly very much slave labor. But
this, it's not entirely unreasonable to come to the conclusion that authoritarianism is a core feature of socialism.
I would also love for him to do a video that actually explains what socialism, because whenever he does these what is socialism videos, they never actually line up to these countries that he is defending. North Korea is not socialist. Cuba is not socialist. China is not socialist. Vietnam is not socialist. These are all.
To be fair, North Korea, you can say there's lies. China, to me, makes no sense. What I'm saying is, you can be an idiot around North Korea, or even be an extreme skeptic, and it's like someone saying, I'm not saying the world is flat. I'm just saying we don't know for sure, guys, that it is round. We don't know for sure. You know what I mean? We don't know for sure because that's just the government center. That's just NASA. That's just they could be lying to us. It's this sort of thing of like you're not saying it is this. You're just saying I don't know, guys. To me, it feels a little bit weird. It feels a little bit weird, and that is a thing you can have. But with China, that makes no sense because wow,
all capitalist
There's no
countries
way to.
that have a centralized government and a nationally planned economy to a greater or lesser degree. Because once you dumb it down to this point, you are basically just saying socialism is when the government does stuff. In China, workers don't have control over the means of production.
Yeah.
And in fact, in many corporate-owned, and this is a Michael Parenti quote, okay? Michael Parenti even said himself near the end of his life, because whenever these freaks quote Michael Parenti, Hassan included, they always use Michael Parenti from like the 70s, from the 80s, but they never talk about what his beliefs were in the last decade
He's
of his
very
life,
hard to quote
where he
people,
said
anyway.
that China has millions and millions of suffering workers who are toiling for subsistence wages. They have completely privatized healthcare. It is not a right there. There's one union that does not represent the right of workers and does not operate in the corporate-owned business sections of China, where if they tried to protest for better wages, for a living wage, they would be beaten by the police and put in jail, the people's police.
We'll address this a bit more thoroughly in a few minutes.
But as I've said, though, I think that the main arguments against China being socialist is just like, it's the center for world production. Businesses don't pay workers. Do you think businesses are like out there going, oh, no, we're against socialism, but that's just in our country, that's just in America, that's just in Europe, we're all fine in China, we'll pay them all the wages now in China, no, they're all good. No, that's not, no, it's fucking, no, think about it, you know? Jesus Christ, it's just to me.
But suffice it to say that in the West, we may have a slightly biased opinion on the matter, through no fault of our own. We've just been subjected to nearly 100 years of Red Scare propaganda at this point.
Yeah, but address the fact that even beyond countries who either claim or are claimed to be socialist, there are many countries that are authoritarian that are not.
Everything we're taught growing up in the imperial core, especially in the US, points
Now, also remember this, that Karl Marx said that the theory of communism can be summed up in a single sentence, the abolition of private property, which is constitutionally enshrined in all of these countries. They are so far from anything even nominally socialist. And it's so disgusting that this is what is being sold as socialism, because it just shows the lack of
I will say, to be fair, Cuba is one of those countries that has moved away from left-wing economic positions. So, to be fair to someone who says Cuba, they're not necessarily saying Cuba now, they're saying Cuba at some time. Similar to someone saying the Soviet Russia or USSR. They're not saying Russia now, clearly, you know, because that would be even more thick than, you know, China, because, you know, no, it wouldn't really be, you know what I mean? It would at least, you know, it would be at least trying to, it's like, oh, well, that's just a business example. You could just be thick at business and also, you know, just general market economics. That's not the right word, is it? But, you know, the point is you can be unaware of all that and be like, oh, what, really? They're the center of, I never realized. I thought it said made for China. I thought, I didn't know that. That's a big, but like with Russia, it's like, no. It's clearly, it's beyond even just capitalist. It's corrupt capitalist in a sense, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, don't worry. Sometimes they kill billionaires when they disagree with the leader. That's when that happens. Who is also a billionaire. So, you know.
People have, that they literally cannot imagine what a society would look like post-capitalism.
At least China can make the argument, well, our billionaires are homegrown, you know, they entered other markets, into our own domestic markets, we privatize them, you know, they're homegrown. They're not necessarily, you know, people who, who knows though, who've been given access to natural resources just because, you know, but Russia definitely is. Russia's like, no, here's the natural resources, don't need to do anything, you just need to be a little pal of the government, which at that point is just kind of like, it's pretty close to being fascist at that point.
That they just make up these countries in their minds as countries that are actually struggling against capitalism, but what they're really just doing is trying to build up their own economies and push against Western hegemony. That's it. Also, yeah, the fact that he used the term imperial core, that is very much a Marxist-Leninist term. When you're talking about like the NATO countries, they say imperial core.
Bit outdated as well, seeing as you know, the United States is the main one there. It's like, it's very funny when you hear like English news, like England and the United States. Like, yes, definitely. I'm sure the United States is looking at it like, yeah, like, oh, so like, what? Like a tiny fraction of our military. It's like, oh, we got one guy. We got a battalion of people, and also one English person. They're not like, they didn't join our military. They're just, this is a co-effort. That's the distance between our involvements. Like the British are still sending their whole military, but woo, that is a massive difference. I'm just saying, you know, to be fair, their populations are very different, but still, even for population, the point is, you know, the imperial core is not really the best example because, like, well, at this point, it's not really true because there is clearly certain countries leading the pack, and another country like, we're part of here too, you know, so not great.
The fact that people would scoff at him being a tanky when he very much is just ridiculous.
To sort of the conclusion that communism is evil and capitalism is righteous. But here's the part where I'm going to have to ask you to be willing to consider some unpleasant truths.
Oh my God.
And I don't say these things to engage in whataboutism or because I'm anti-American or something. Quite the contrary.
This entire video so far has been whataboutism and anti-Americanism. Like, you can absolutely, I think that any reasonable person would have a lot of problems with the United States. There are so many problems with the United States. But the solution to that problem isn't to become a China simp.
You do fair, but I mean, on the other hand, like, to remove it from the you know, promotion of China, which is to me still insane. Not insane, just stupid. People use the word insane to be, yeah, they use it incorrectly. Anyway, the point is, you can have an anti-American attitude, and it's because America is objectively one of the worst. Like, from a visual point of view, at least. There are definitely countries that you could argue are definitely worse, but, you know, from a visual point of view, it's like, yeah. Even countries that are fairly right-wing economically, like, yeah, let's not go there, you know, because we know that just damages people in general. I don't even know why America is doing that. It just seems like they're stabbing themselves in the foot. Like, not even, like, at least a capitalist country can go, well, fuck the workers, you know, because, like, in a way, you know, they're replaceable, you know, so why would we care, you know? Honest question, why would we care, you know? So you can say that, but, like, not having healthcare is very odd and seems very inefficient even for a capitalist nation. That's why most capitalist nations are like, no, we have at least some form of universal healthcare, because we're not completely stupid. We're aware that there's certain things that you should give out to people, because no matter how replaceable someone is, you know, you don't want a Black Plague situation where it's like, oh fuck, everyone is sick, and we do not provide healthcare, and we do not provide hygiene in spaces. So, wow, the workers have suddenly gained a significant amount of power, because we had loads of workers before, and now we have none, and loads of rich people. Okay, so demand for goods, for luxury goods, is pretty damn high, but supply workers to make that goods are pretty low. And that's what occurred in the Black Death. You had this sort of shift in power, because before, yeah, but now, there's a lot more power in the workers' hands, because the workers are like, well, you know, that massive number of workers you could replace me with? Yeah, they're dead now, so, and you're not. If you were dead, I'd be stuck, because I would have no one to work for, but now, you know. Anyway, the point is that, you know, it's just a bit of an odd one now.
I believe that in order for any country to live up to the standards it sets for others, it needs to soberly reflect on the facts. And the facts indicate that everything we're taught about these awful authoritarian socialist countries, we are also guilty of, and often to a far greater degree. Let me elaborate. One thing that rarely gets the
I'm interested to see what bullshit he's about to cook up.
attention it deserves is how we talk about authoritarianism. And I mean that literally, like the very words we use. Take the DPRK. We never hear about the government of North Korea. We hear about the Kim regime.
So we're noting with the Kim regime, Kim Jong-un's dad and grandfather are enshrined as the eternal leaders of the country in the Constitution.
And even if they weren't, it's just fucking weird to have, you know, generational people in power. Like, oh, is this not just a monarchy, just under a different name? You know?
Like, the fact that Kim Jong-un became the leader was a result of nepotism. Before he was picked, his brother was being groomed for the position. And because of a falling out, and I'm sure many people remember this, they had his brother assassinated. It is not a democratic country whatsoever, and pretending it is just a slap in the face to so many people who have risked their lives to leave.
This is common when Westerners talk about non-capitalist governments, or even capitalist ones that aren't vassal states of the US. They have a regime, we and our allies.
I remember when I was reading the Human Rights Report, how I think it was in 2007, North Korea spent 1/3 of its GDP just building statues. Like, you have to be fucking insane not to realize that this country is a dictatorship with a god emperor installed in it.
Allies have a government.
I would say arguments against that would be, well, how do you know how much money? GDP, by the way, is a terrible calculation of money, because it's not real money in your hands.
The way we talk about different systems
GNP is only better calculation.
goes a long way towards coloring our perception of them. People criticize labor camps or secret police or any number of other scary authoritarian words. But here's the thing.
Okay.
What? Secret police is fucking weird? What? To have people with actual police powers? Like, I understand the whole thing of like, well, you have people who are kind of police, but you have nowhere near the power of police. That makes a certain amount of sense. And you can go, well, that's not authoritarian. But secret police, no, that just is. That just objectively is. What's interesting about this is that you can't go, well, what about America? Because, like, okay, and? In this scenario, okay, what about America? And what about it? You know? So what? I know that. Like, we know that the American police are fucking shite. Like, you know, it's worldly known. There's a reason why, you know, my country, our police in general don't have guns. You know, we are fully aware that the police are not, you know, the best. And, you know, England has also had problems with this. And, you know, they have clear examples as well of police problems. All I'm saying is there's so many examples of things. And it's just, you know.
All right. So, first of all, if JT sees this, I will pay you money, JT. I will give you every last cent in my bank account. I want you to go to the White House right now and yell fuck Joe Biden at the White House. And then I want you to fly to Pyongyang, North Korea, and go outside and just start shouting fuck Kim Jong-un and see what happens. Will it be equal then? Will they be as democratic and based as you think they are?
Once again, argument could be, well, you know, there is hyper-aware and, you know, fear factor involved. But anyway, yeah.
But also, the camps in North Korea
I mean, you're not going to make it to Kim, but anyway.
are literally, they have multiple camps for political dissidents.
Yeah.
Multiple camps for political dissidents. If you disagree with the regime, they will put you in a camp. You can disagree with the U.S. government. Fuck, I don't think a lot of people I know who live in the U.S. like have a lot of warm feelings right now towards Biden, and they're not being put in camps as a result of this. Part of what makes a country a
yeah, but
democracy is the ability to have a plurality of political opinions that can coexist at the same time.
Sorry.
What makes
arguably you could argue that Biden and the Republican Party aren't too dissimilar from each other, and you know, like they had the House and Senate. Why didn't they, you know, put stuff through? Anyway, the point is, you have this thing where you go, okay, but you know, to scratch it back and take a look, you know, you say,
is the ability to have a lot of warm feelings right now towards Biden, and they're not being put in camps as a result of this.
But could they potentially be under a Republican leader, like arrested for disagreeing with policies? That's possible. In England, it's possible. So for all the talk, potentially, yes.
Part of what makes a country a democracy is the ability to have a plurality of political opinions that can
But it's not plurality. Anyway, the point is,
coexist at the same time. What makes North Korea a dictatorship is the suppression of freedom of speech and freedom of expression.
there's also the thing of like, oh, you know, if you yell something at Biden, you would be tackled to the ground by the Secret Service, who would then let you go after maybe a bit of discussion and, you know, like, don't fucking do that again. And you'd be on the news, you know, like, oh, look at this fucking idiot who tried to yell something at Biden and was tackled by the Secret Service. And then in North Korea, you'd be killed instantly. There is a thing where, like, okay, but are not both those things potentially bad, you know? We're like, oh, I have a broken rib now because they tackled me to the ground and held me at gunpoint. And then they were like, oh, actually, this is just a It's just a person being an idiot. They're not like trying to do something. You know, both things are bad. Obviously, the North Korean one is far worse. But you know, you can't defend. Not defend. You can't defend. You can't attack someone's idea of North Korea by doing, roughly speaking, the same thing by going, well, what about America? You know,
Secret police, or any number of other scary authoritarian words. But here's the thing, we have those too. And if you look at the data, often to a far greater extent than any socialist project in history.
But when you say we, I really don't like it when Americans say to a global audience, we have them too. Like, okay, yeah, I'm aware that a country north of my country definitely had secret police, and they were definitely mass murderers. A country that maybe someone on screen is in right now, possibly. Who knows though? Maybe she's still going on. I'm not sure. Is that still going on? I don't know at time recording.
We just don't call them by those names. We don't have secret police, we have plainclothes officers, or the intelligence community.
The U.S. literally has the Secret Service. What is Blood talking about? What in the fuck is this as a talking point?
Yeah, it's a bit odd.
Like, Secret Service is not secret police. I have revealed myself that I am not as American as I try to appear. I'm getting owned by chat.
Yeah, I mean,
to be fair, I am about as on point as he is.
Well, yeah.
Protective agency does a lot of work in financial crimes. Oh man, I was off base.
I mean, interestingly, when it comes to those sort of things,
yeah, he could have mentioned the CIA, the NSA. Canada has the Canadian Secret Intelligence Service. The UK has the MI5. Like, this is definitely something that exists. But this is just him doing whataboutism again. Also, these are different organizations than regular police organizations. I'm pretty sure every country does have plainclothes officers. I met a plainclothes officer when I was in Cuba.
Yeah. In general, I think both would be wrong though, because generally, if the CIA are like, oh, we think that somebody is slightly in disagreement with this policy, that some politicians are also in disagreement with, it's like, okay, that seems definitely one-sided and a very odd thing to have politicians in government right now. Yeah. Oh, okay. That seems. I mean, sure. You know, generally they wouldn't be against unless it's like, you know, a certain thing like guns or something like that. It's like, maybe we should keep track of this person because their reasons for being against it are suspect. If it's like kind of policies where that covers certain very serious crime, yeah. But you know, you would, yeah. It's just, for plainclothes people would not be a good thing because that's literally just, you know, that's a common thing. You know, it's not. Generally, secret police would be a little bit more. You know, they're plainclothes people to specific type of crime. They don't do. I mean, they investigate specific type of crimes. You know, crimes that, you know, clothes police officers generally uniformed police officers look into as well. But they're generally the lead. While you know, people in situations where uniformed police officers are in charge, it's generally a little different sort of crimes. But yeah, that's in general. But yeah, I mean, I would say a better example would be people actively doing the work of uniformed police officers, but as an ordinary citizen. Also, plainclothes police officers are like actively police officers. They're not like secret. You know, they have in many countries a badge or, you know, identification to say they're a police officer. They're not like, ooh, they're secret in the sense that they're plainclothes, but beyond that, it's like, not really. You know, many of them also drive police vehicles, yeah, or at least get driven in police vehicles, and yeah, they're not. That's not really the best example there. You know, so. But anyway, back to the video.
We don't have gulags, we have detention centers, which, by the way, house far more inmates than the Soviet Union ever did.
Okay. Soviet Union kept millions of people, so, I mean, also, population increases, that's not really a great thing. Also, it's like, yeah, I mean, the Soviet Union tortured 5 million dogs, we've tortured 5.1 million dogs. So, they're better. It's like, I mean, they're not good, though. Being like, oh, well, we've done more crimes then, so we're worse. Like, okay, you are worse, but also the correction that has the population of dogs increased. It has, okay, arguably then no, you know, but also it's like, okay, but then that doesn't make them good though. Very, very odd take.
Howard, these are not the same.
Yeah.
The detention centers are foul, but pretending that these are the same thing is insane. Because in the U.S.
That's the thing. They're not the same. The gulags are work camps, you know.
Their entire reason for this was rehabilitative labor, where they would have this ideological spin in order to force people into cheap labor. This is absolutely a false equivalency.
More so that if you didn't want to work for the stuff they just make you, you know, work away, and if you don't work away, then we will have to force you, which is a recommendation to you know, people withholding their labor, actually doing basically kind of a social movement of like unionizing in a sort of a rough way, like maybe not officially, but you know, something like, I will not work for this. It's like, oh, okay, well, you will though. It'll work out. That I meant like for all of the union suppression that you know America does. You know, you you are not allowed, at least officially, to gather union people up. You're allowed to potentially kill them, but you're not allowed to gather them up and put them in a work camp and go, well, no, you're working for the same person as well, by the way. The auto workers we're not allowed to be just gathered up and just go, oh, your Stellantis have said that they'll be willing to use this, so now you're going to be working in this work camp for Stellantis making cars. There we go. Huh? You thought you could unionize, but no, you're going to be working for the same fucking person, but for less money now.
See, it just showed like a fucking work camp right next to the detention center.
And of course, we don't have slave labor, we have penal labor. We put inmates to work.
You also have child labor.
Factor hand sanitizer during a pandemic or fighting fires because enshrined in
He literally, in the previous slide, showed the USSR having slave labor.
the And of course, we don't have slave labor, we have penal labor. We put inmates to work manufacturing hand sanitizer during a pandemic or fighting fires because enshrined in the 13th Amendment.
Okay, so the argument is, well, that you're talking about specifically the fact that there are camps, ignoring what goes on in them. Okay, it is true.
To the United States Constitution, slavery is illegal except as punishment for a crime. And a lot of the time, that crime is just being poor. A parking ticket.
So don't say we, say United States then. Because
Hold on a sec.
I couldn't just have that.
Work manufacturing hand sanitizer during a pandemic or fighting fires because enshrined in the
It's not
13th
to say, by the way, that we don't have to say it. I'm just saying we don't have the 13th Amendment.
Amendment to the United States Constitution, slavery is illegal except as punishment for.
So the problem that I have with a lot of the points that Second Thought makes really is that he is correct. These are all bad things that are true about the United States. However, these aren't arguments for countries like North Korea. You should be able to argue the merits of the political and economic systems of these countries on its own, outside of constantly mentioning the United States.
Yeah.
For a crime. And a lot of the time, that crime is just being poor. A parking ticket you couldn't pay. Getting caught with the same drug a rich person uses, but you don't have the money to buy yourself out of trouble. We don't have a Ministry of War, we have a Department of Defense.
One sec, just going back to this.
Hey, getting caught with the same drug a rich person uses, but you don't have the money to buy yourself out of trouble.
I mean, this is also a huge problem in China. This is a problem in Cuba. This is a problem in North Korea. This is definitely not something that you need to do whataboutism. In fact, there's a lot more executions for this crime in China, where they have very strict laws on people buying even small amounts of narcotics.
We don't have a Ministry of War, we have a Department of Defense. Despite never once fighting a defensive war, every military action taken by the United States on bomb.
Never fought a war? Arguably, World War II certainly was. Yeah. But it ends there. Also, potentially speaking, Ukraine is also potentially a defensive war. Because unlike other situations where America has funded people, in this case, it's very likely that Russia could eventually turn its eyes on the US. But anyway.
Hospitals to drone striking foreign citizens is given the cover of defense.
So this is just what I mean, right? As also, no, World War II was not defense. The invasion of Iraq was not defense. Not all of the wars that the U.S. engaged in were under the cover of defense. And U.S. foreign policy is atrocious, should absolutely be condemned. But once again, these are not arguments for why these other systems are good.
World War II kind of was defense, though. Like, its reason for joining wasn't. But, like, it's arguably true that the Nazis wanted America in the war, at least AH wanted them. But, it's not the most reliable person in the world when it comes to military strategy. But I would argue the U.S. could claim defense, not the reason why they joined. Pearl Harbor is a fucking weird reason to join. But yeah.
War 1812, World War II, and the Civil War were not defensive wars. Apparently, Second Thought teaches us a lot.
Okay, so you got your agreement. But,
yeah, that's also a good point. A lot of world democracies have also abolished the death penalty. Well, every single ML government has not.
We don't have state media or propaganda. We just have news. Those news outlets are, of
okay, come on.
course, all owned by the same corporate interests who funnel millions of dollars a year into government pockets to make sure their profits are secure.
This is a terrible, terrible point. Because yes, we do have state media. Canada does, the UK does, the US does. Like every country has state media. But also these kinds of arguments end up hurting people on the left. You can't run alternative media in North Korea or China or Cuba or Vietnam. You'll get shut down by the state because the state has a hand in all communications and all media. Like there's a thing that I was reading specifically about North Korea where they try to make it look like they have more than one media publication in the country. And the way that they do that is they have multiple publications. All of them are being run by the same state media organization that is just rebranding itself into different publications in order to give the illusion that there is choice.
To be fair, that's also what corporations do. But yeah.
Sure, and their anchors dutifully repeat the ruling class's ideological positions.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our... Did you think that he sounded like really smart in this portion when he said that the media in the U.S. only repeats the talking points of the ruling class, as if state media in North Korea or China?
Okay, I think at this point, the second is arguing that yes, they have this, but so do we, which is not an argument, but don't attack the point of well, you don't think that these two countries they don't have to make. No, I think technically they do, but that so does America effectively. But still not an argument, but
Does not do the same thing. This is just a pitiful non-argument. I'm sure that I'm sure state media in North Korea and China have a diversity of opinions. I'm not actually sure of that. I know it's fucking bullshit. Our democracy.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy. Their guys are dictators, ours are presidents. Their state has a regime, ours has a government.
Is that really that hard to just admit when someone is a dictator? When it's very clear that they are a dictator when you look into the legal...
Okay. What's interesting about this is that this is literally just me saying, let the US join the club, lads. Let's call ours a regime as well, We're a part of it. That's the argument. Effectively, in my eyes. It could be used as at least.
Legal system of this country, and there is no way to vote them out, and they have been in power for decades. It's just incredibly bad faith. And I really worry the type of people that this content is getting pushed to.
We're free and happy, they're oppressed and miserable. Our nuclear arsenal is for deterrence.
Yes, they are. They are oppressed in North Korea.
Okay.
You have to be oppressed in order to be willing to risk your life in order to flee a country. Many people have died trying to leave North Korea. Many people have died trying to leave Cuba. Many people have died trying to leave China, trying to leave Vietnam.
Yeah.
That's a fact. But if you ask these tankies about that, they will just try and victim blame.
To be fair, their argument can also be, though, in reaction, yes, but so people died, and trying to get to
The people who are willing to risk their lives for their own safety and the safety of their families. I cannot tell you how many times I hear people calling some poor Cuban immigrant who almost drowned trying to get to the United States on a boat a Gusano, and trying to conflate them to the rich right-wingers who left immediately following the revolution.
We're free and happy, they're oppressed and miserable. Our nuclear arsenal is for deterrence. Theirs is a threat to global peace, despite the US being the only country on Earth to have ever used nuclear weapons, and we did it twice.
This is also a really bad faith interpretation of events, because North Korea is constantly doing missile tests and threatening other countries. They even had to put out a warning in recent years because of a North Korean nuclear missile flying far too close to the coast of Japan. The USSR did the largest nuclear blast test of any country in history. The fact that the US was the first country to use it does not mean that China or the USSR wouldn't have if they could.
I mean,
on civilians.
They could have,
On purpose. We have democracy, they have a dictatorship, despite by all accounts places like Cuba and China having far more representation and opportunity for democratic involvement.
The US has also dropped multiple nuclear bombs on itself, so incompetence is also up there.
Than places like the US.
I'm not defending their attacks on Japan nuclear, but I'm just saying. They may also, I'm not quite sure, they may well be the only nation to ever drop a bomb on themselves.
So the way we talk about government structures,
like, by
That's a
accident.
shit. How can you have any legitimate democratic involvement if you are not allowed to fully voice your political opinion? That is antithetical to any concept of democracy. There's one ideology in these countries. You cannot step outside that ideology.
Yeah.
Characteristics and actions matters. Without even knowing it, we can end up falling prey to some very subtle, very sophisticated propaganda that finds us to hate people we've never met, whose economic and government structures we know nothing about, and with whom we share far more in common than we do with our own leaders. Okay, fine, but those are just words. Who cares what we call our stuff?
See, here's the thing.
It's very hard to go, North Korea is a horrible dictatorship, but so are we. So let's go to North Korea today, because it's just like home. Shit.
I don't hate the people of North Korea. I don't hate the people of China. I don't hate the people of Cuba. I want them to have the freedoms
Would you hate Americans?
that so many of us take for granted.
Joke.
The freedoms that people like Second Thought, who is a rich white dude from Texas, takes for granted and argues against. Because I know a lot of them are willing to risk their lives for those freedoms that a lot of us don't even notice that we have.
All right, let's talk specifics. In a striking 2012 article by Adam Gopnik called The Caging of America, the author notes that, quote, overall, there are now more people under correctional supervision in America, more than 6 million, than were in the Gulag under Stalin at its height. And this
Not a great example, because oh, really? Now, first of all, yeah, but that's the US. You're not really tackling authoritarianism, are you? You're just saying the US is authoritarian. Okay, we get it. Most countries would probably say, I agree, yeah.
coming from an American writer with a thoroughly...
That's not great. Okay, back to said video.
It's a point in comparison because, as we all know, Stalin, Gulags, and the Soviet Union are the trifecta of what the average person sees as authoritarianism. The fact that we...
Not really, no. I mean, most people would point to, a nation such as, Turkmenistan and places like that, like, you wouldn't look at the Soviet Union.
We're doing worse than that.
No, actually, Stalin did significantly worse than that. Stalin was the architect of multiple ethnic cleansings. Hundreds of thousands of people being moved from different parts of the country against their will. Starvation. Literally millions dead. Just to say that it's fucking nonsense to say that somehow the United States is doing worse than Stalin. The prison industrial complex is real and it's disgusting. But to say that the United States is worse than a dictator who has committed some of the worst atrocities in human history?
Yeah. It's also very America-centric to think that people think that the Soviet Union is a mean thing of authoritarianism. Like,
Even if you buy the inflated numbers of widely...
Yeah, I didn't even notice this anymore, but a really good point that someone just brought up. In all of his examples of authoritarianism, he never mentioned the Nazis. He never mentioned fascist Spain, Mussolini's Italy. None of those came up as examples of authoritarianism because the point of this video is to defend countries like China and North Korea.
Well, also the point is that at that point you're literally preaching to every choir. Like there are people who are Nazis who are fully aware that the Nazis are authoritarian. They agree with it. This is the thing. The Nazis are not really a great example to bring up if you're trying to do a video of convincing anyone of anything. It's like, okay, yes, I know that. Yeah, and yeah, fuck them. And what's the video about? I'm aware that they're authoritarian, and everyone hates them. People who, who like them agree with them mostly about the authoritarian stuff. There is a very, I don't like. Maybe there probably is at least one person, but there's very few people who wouldn't say that they're authoritarian. Now, what I said before, many people would agree with them and they'd like that, but there's very few people who would say that they aren't. So that would be preaching to the part of my documents.
Debunk books like Black Book of Communism should tell you something. And fun fact, the CIA wrote a report in the 50s that the whole Stalin strawman thing was largely a myth. It was very useful.
Eek.
Myth to the capitalist power, so why not perpetuate it? But I know what
The only problem is, like, the CIA, I'm not sure how much,
you're thinking. Everybody knows that...
Is he going to provide... I find it interesting that now he's willing to listen to the FBI, but I also find it interesting that he didn't provide a single citation for this point.
Yeah,
That is an incredibly bold point to make, and he just says it.
The US has a thing for prisons. That's like one thing
to be fair.
we could ease back on a little bit.
I would also argue, where is that when you say citation needed? It's like, okay, well, to be fair, like you could say, well, yeah, they're hardly going to put it up on the CIA website, but also, if there is no citation, is that true? The CIA said that, or is that a leak? You know, like, well, this article here discusses it. Okay, so you're just quoting somebody else who also said that? That's not a source. It has to be the primary source. Otherwise, you're just saying, well, you know, this it's like the New York Times covered this. Like, really? And where did the New York Times get the story? You know, they talked to anonymous CIA people. Oh, really? Did they? And that's accurate, is it? I doubt the New York Times would ever do that. But you know, I'm just giving an example of a source that would be in general trusted, but like that's not. There's no reason to. You trust a source because its tendency to be careful around what to print. You don't trust a source. Like there's no reason to trust New York Times for accuracy, except for the fact that it is unlikely to print something that's true. Except of course that isn't really true. The New York Times is very likely to print something that's not true. It just depends on what the truth is.
Doesn't make the country authoritarian. Let's continue then. How about surveillance? It's pretty widely believed that
Oh
citizens
my god, the video essay vibes from this are.
of socialist states are the subject of extreme surveillance. But what if I told you that none of them hold a candle to the US? Don't believe me? Take a look at section.
But I did not realize how US-centric this was. But let's move away from the US and let's discuss other places as well. You know, oh my god, Americans are very measured.
702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Thanks to this piece of legislation, every single person in the United States is the subject of
UK tried that too, but yeah.
incredibly intense scrutiny. We have a mass surveillance program that allows for the collection of phone conversations, text messages, emails, web searches, and social media messages. Everything you do is being monitored. But wait, until the
Interesting
Foreign
people outside of America, which is, you know, an infringement on foreign stuff.
Surveillance Act. So
So there's a few things wrong with this. I mean, obviously, China does this too. China takes a step further, and
Well,
keyloggers
definitely, yeah.
are installed on most retail devices. This is the reason why Naomi Wu got blackbagged, and she hasn't been seen for months, because she tried to blow the whistle on this, and the government made her go away. It's also going to be incredibly disingenuous if he tries to mention this in relation to countries of the past like the USSR, because technology is not the same as it was in the 1950s.
Yeah.
why are we in the crosshairs?
I mean, like, China's like, oh yeah, oh, there's a camera. It is one of the most surveilled states in the world. Yeah, that's... At that point, she's like, oh, no, don't worry. We didn't track you on your phone. We didn't need to. We just tracked you with the cameras. See? We did technically track you on your phone as well, but we didn't look at that because we have you on the cameras. You know, because you could have given your phone to somebody or something like that, but we have you on the cameras. So, you know. See? There's your face from all the different angles. Yeah, and we would just zoom in. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there's you. You know, there's you going into your home. Oh, should that. You know, so yeah.
Well, it started out as a way to keep tabs on communications between U.S. citizens and foreign nationals deemed a threat of some kind. But over the last decade or so, the scope of the project has expanded dramatically. What was once strictly a counterterrorism tool, which is already incredibly vague and dangerous, has now morphed into a domestic surveillance apparatus where the NSA provides this data to the CIA and the FBI, which they can use to open investigations into any person in the...
You know what? I'm gonna try to be calm about this, despite how fucking stupid he's being, because China is like this too. And the difference is, he can openly talk about it on a public platform to over 1 million people. And he wants to say that China and...
To be fair, he's not breaking the news. Like, you wouldn't know what might happen to you if you broke the news. It's just, it's not new news. So, you know, the CIA are likely to go, oh really, someone else reporting a fact that's known by most people? No, we'll crack them down and we'll imprison for no fucking reason. All this will do is make us look like we're one of those countries that actually does that sort of thing, you know? Like, no, you're not going to do that for an open thing that everyone knows. If it's like I was going, and I have some records here that show, no, you'd be shocked to believe this. You wouldn't have thought this, but turns out the country's been spying on you for all these years. If that was what he was doing, possibly then you could think everyone, well, I don't know, something might happen to you then. But, you know, telling people about something that most people probably know about, maybe not most people, but good people probably know about, and it's already known, is not in general going to be thinking that the US is going to be like, oh yeah, no, because we don't look like China, you know?
and the US are on the same level. For all of the problems that America has, they are able to actually speak their mind.
country without a warrant. But what do we want to give U.S. intelligence agencies the benefit of the doubt? They're just doing their job, right? If you're not a criminal, you have nothing to hide. According to a 2022 report, the FBI and CIA conduct millions of these backdoor searches for no legitimate reason. They pull data on family members, journalists, political commentators, even government officials. For what reason? Who knows?
But the argument is, if not, well, the argument of if you're not going to you have to hide. It's like, yeah, and so what if they know about that? So what? That's the argument. I don't really get this sort of thing. Well, you should, but actually, that would be the point. How are they to know if you're a criminal if they don't search your history? The idea is that it's fine, guys, because you're not a criminal. Like, you don't need to worry because like you're not a criminal. So you know that's fine. Why do you care about them knowing those facts about you? You know.
They want dirt on politicians they don't like, so they're either against. They saw you on a coffee shop.
So, an interesting thing,
But
if he's going to make these incredibly bad faith comparisons.
Why is there dirt? Why is there dirt? You can invent a politician. Nah, at that point it makes sense. But why is there dirt? If there's dirt, surely it's not on the public interest. You know, like a politician's like, yeah, they used to run a dog murdering club when they were in college. They had 5 people. They're relatively good friends, and they used to murder dogs every Friday. Yep, all through college, and then when they got their masters, they continued it. You know, when they actually expanded the club out to about 20 people. Oh, that's turned to them. Yeah, I feel like the public might want to know about that. To be honest, that would point to a specific ideology of that person. The point is like, okay, but why is that necessarily a bad thing? I'm not saying it is a good thing to be clear. I'm just saying why is that necessarily a bad thing? You know.
In the UN Human Rights Commission report on North Korea, most of the people who were in the political dissident camps did not know why they were there. They were not even told why they were being spied on before they got blackbagged and taken to these camps in the first place.
To be fair, an argument will be, well, if you just told them that was like a lie, like you tried to kill a political leader, it's like I did not do that. I just didn't do that. Maybe they're wrong, but what's more likely is they just lied to you. So I don't really think it's a thing like, oh, just tell people, okay, and then they know a thing that they didn't do, okay, like, I didn't do that. I know that that's the reason they're giving for me to be in here, but like, I didn't do that. At that point, you don't really know. Is that an excuse to the higher powers? Then you have this sort of situation. Is that an excuse to higher powers? Because you don't really want a situation where people are aware. Because then there's obfuscation. A person in power go, I didn't know. It's just the state stuff that I run. Sure, it's a dictatorship, but the state thing that I run, I didn't realize that they were arresting people and saying that they had tried to kill me. Actually, they hadn't. I was told all this, but I didn't know. If people who are not told, then the state has no way of defending their actions. Because okay, but why weren't they told? Why weren't they told? Clearly, they should be told. Like, that's a bad thing. You don't do it again. Understood? Like, if you were just arrested for a crime and you actually had committed the crime, you didn't know what the crime was. Okay, if it was obvious what the crime you committed was, if you knew it was a crime and all that, and you were afraid of getting arrested, sure. But if you didn't know that, then if they were to ever let you go, how would you not know? How would you know not to do it again? Because so it's just a little side thing there. I don't think that that's particularly fair.
Just making this comparison is just kind of disgusting. I'm happy that he is able to say what he wants to say, but the fact that he can't recognize that he is in a position where he has the freedom to say this about what is obviously a terrible system, the US goes far too overboard with its surveillance program. But acting like China doesn't do this, acting like North Korea doesn't do this, come on.
Thought you were cute and asked the barista for your name. That's all they need. Some random intelligence creep can plug in your name, phone number, or email address and have access to years of your personal communications, web activity, address, personal details, all of it. No authoritarian regime in history has ever wielded that kind of surveillance power.
China.
Yes, China literally does this.
Yeah, and far more.
It's incredibly bold that he is willing to just say these things.
I would actually say that potentially England is worse than the US in the sense, and potentially England is below a par with China, but I would argue in a sense only because of just the amount of money that would cost, and the fact that China, for all of its capitalist nature, does have the state involvement of the state isn't hard to look at that. So that's still the case in the UK, but which is interesting because that's where But anyway.
And there are people who eat this up, and that's why he is so dangerous. He's gone to a point where he has such a big name that he's seen as an authority on this subject, despite being very manipulative, lying to his audience, and not presenting all of the facts.
Okay, dystopian prison population, largest surveillance apparatus in history. That all sounds.
It's also worth noting that this is the case in every single Marxist-Leninist country. In every Marxist-Leninist country, in every workplace, in every school, in every institution, there is a cell of the Communist Party, and they are monitoring everything. Like, you can look this up. This is a fact. This isn't something that is hidden. This is literally how the structures of Communist parties work. They are being spied on and surveilled and observed by the party apparatus, basically since they're children. People in North Korea are taught from a very young age to show more allegiance to the state than their own families, and are expected to even report people in their own families. And it's not hard to get this kind of information out there. But I think that so many people are so disillusioned with the United States that they are literally willing to believe whatever anyone presents to them as an alternative, even if it's a dystopian nightmare.
It's pretty bad. But at least we have the freedom to criticize the government, right? The secret police aren't going to come drag us away. Well, I got some bad news for you there, too. U.S. police are the most vicious and unaccountable in the world by far.
I would highly disagree with that.
There are plenty of videos online of police arresting journalists, brutalizing peaceful protesters, even laughing about killing innocent people. I have a whole video on the subject, actually. But here's the gist of it. According to ongoing reporting, U.S. police kill over 1,000 American citizens per year. 1,000 people. And I already. Yeah, well, so...
It's interesting to note because when all the photos came out about the camps in Xinjiang, the genocide that is happening to the Uyghur Muslim population in the Xinjiang region of China, his co-host on the program pod said there is no genocide happening there, and that he thinks that what the Chinese are doing to Muslims in that region is actually the ideal outcome.
Wow.
Like, I know that he's just lying to his teeth doing these whataboutisms, because I've seen what the people that
I did not know that.
he closely aligns himself with
Who was that? Which co-host?
to say about these issues. He's not willing to go that mask off, but he surrounds himself with people who absolutely are.
Those people are probably criminals.
Which
Police
co-host?
are not meant to be judge, jury, and executioner. They're meant to arrest people if they have to, and then hand them over to
I'd like to know which co-host that was, because
the judge, jury, and we really should talk about the executioner part. Open social media on any day of the week, and you'll see a story of an officer-involved shooting, where the
I'm just saying, like, if there was no reports of officers involved shooting, that wouldn't be a sign that everything's fine, guys.
media tries really hard to twist the reporting to make the cops sound less like a murderer. With body cameras often required these days, it's getting harder for them to hide their crimes, though they still try. Anyway, the bottom line is this. If we look at any other country on Earth, let's say China, the hot button supposed authoritarian hellhole of the day, and compare police violence stats, the US is far worse.
Okay, but question for you. How do you get police violence stats in China? Is China likely to go, guys, yeah, we killed loads of people this year, like loads of them. They were all innocent, by the way, like all of them, really, like there was one which was just killed, like it was really, really, really easy, like, guys. So those are the reports. Even if China, by the way, was completely clear, don't think they are completely justified in those. It still wouldn't make much sense because they are aware that it's going to get twisted if it was not true. So like, why would they ever even publish it? Even if there was a reason for that numbers to be really high, why would they ever publish that to the world? That would make no sense. Just saying, where do you get your police violence stats from China?
In the US, in 2022.
Yeah, China was still executing people by firing squad until very recently. And why exactly would you just trust the statistics that they produce?
Yeah, it's very
What
odd.
reason has China or North Korea given for you to trust their statistics on these things? Like when the UN was trying
Why would you trust American statistics? But also, yeah.
to do an investigation,
Although, to be honest, to be fair, American statistics tend to be relatively good if they're leaks. And I mean real leaks, not just like, well, it's reported that maybe this is true, possibly. Where you can have situations where a country's like, no, we're going to keep track of this. We're not going to announce it. We're going to keep track of this. All the countries are like, you know what, best if we just forget this happened.
UN was trying to do an investigation into North Korea, for instance. North Korea refused and said that the UN was trying to destabilize their country and a whole bunch of nonsense about imperialism and foreign interference. And with China, when they're trying to do investigations, they're basically given the treatment that journalists were given during the Nazi regime, where they were brought to a show camp. They had a show camp for Jewish inmates at this camp to show journalists. There's like videos of the show camp where they are playing, they're playing soccer, they're knitting, they're having naps. I do not believe the kind of propaganda that would come out of a country like China. I would only believe this if they would be willing to accept an international investigation into these allegations.
But even then, like, how do you investigate the killings by police in a country with over 1 billion people? You know, the US stats are also, you know, but you know, like, at least in the US, people are kept track of in a sense, not necessarily where they are, but that they're alive. You know,
Police killed 1,201 people.
not
In China,
all
that
people,
number
to be clear, but you know.
is 0. Oh, wait, no, I read that wrong. 0 people killed by police since 2019, a year when 2 people were killed. 2 people in 5
Yes, because as we all know, China's a very reliable source.
years. In a country with a population 4 times.
Are you serious?
Like, there's okay, more people have been killed in my country by police, I would say, than that. You know, that is practically speaking impossible, just because of police officers who go like wild, insane, and afterwards get prison time. They were still police officers when they killed a person. You know, so you know, even those in a country of over 1 billion people, almost 2 billion, you're looking at a level where it's like, okay, how is that possible? That is almost one death in 1 billion people. How is that possible? My country's a death rate by police of that maybe 1 to, roughly speaking, 1 million people. I'm not quite sure of the stats. It's low, much lower than the US, but it still occurs because, you know, police officers still go insane. They still go wild, and to be clear, some of them do get removed afterwards. Others do not, but some do get removed. There was a police officer a while back who murdered. Now, I think there is an argument to be made that you would only count police officers well on duty, but this is an example of a police officer. And I don't think they're on duty, but they'd be killed. Their partner. They were not. They didn't get away with that. Well, they didn't get away with that once they were caught. But you know what I mean. But but I'm saying is these police officers do kill people. Just that's not a thing you can control as a nation. The existence of that, you can't control how much. Like, well, there's at a certain cap, they shouldn't be doing it that much. But you know, so that's very, very odd. That's clearly, it's similar to the results that came out of the was a referendum, the vote on should these sections of Ukraine be part of Russia. Oh, conveniently they were this. It's like, guys, if you're gonna rig an election, just make it look small, the winning rate, because if you don't, it's just kind of easily proven to be false. You know.
Well, I guess if someone gets black bag and disappeared, they don't count as dead. They just count as missing, right? So maybe he's technically right. Yeah, absolutely nothing happened in Hong Kong. Don't talk about Hong Kong. Nothing happened there.
Is greater than the United States. Since 2019, U.S. police have killed nearly 5,000 American citizens. So we have a more dystopian prison situation, we spy on people on Earth, and our police murder 3 people on average every single day. If that's not authoritarian, I don't know what is. And this isn't to run defense for the excesses of past and present socialist projects. In fact, socialists are among the most well-read critics of these experiments. The program guys and I have a podcast episode specifically dedicated to the topic.
He is. The point of this video is literally running defense for all of these countries. Like, I'm glad that he admits it at the end of the video, that this is what the point of the video was. Top of the Wikipedia page, list of killings by law enforcement officers in China has a notice saying this list is incomplete. You can help by adding missing items. No, absolutely. Using Wikipedia as a source on it was pretty funny.
Yeah. Free Wikipedia is a encyclopedia. It's from other sources. It's just inaccurate because, well, you know, it's random people. But you know, I'm not quite sure if you heard what he said.
The most spy on people on Earth, and our police murder 3 people on average every single day. If that's not authoritarian, I don't know what is. And this isn't to run defense for the excesses of past and present socialist projects.
It isn't.
In fact, socialists are among the most well-read critics of these experiments. The program guys and I have a podcast episode specifically dedicated to the topic.
So basically, you can take this argument as, oh, these countries are horrible, so are we, kind of thing, which is odd.
He is. The point of this video is literally running defense for all of these countries. Like, I'm glad that he admits it at the end of the video, that this is what the point of the video was. Top of the Wikipedia page, list of killings by law enforcement officers in China has a notice saying this list is incomplete. You can help by adding missing items. No, absolutely. Using Wikipedia as a source on it was pretty funny. But this point right here is why I keep saying there is an alt-left pipeline. This is a real thing. He makes this video where he doesn't go mask off. He does this very obfuscating milquetoast take on all of this, where, oh yeah, well, X country has this, but if you consider America bad. And then he tries to bring people over to the deprogram pod, where they can say how they actually deal with these issues.
To do more in the future. The point of all this is that if we're going to rightly level criticism at some states, we need to make sure to apply that standard universally. And that means starting at home rather than simply passing judgment on countries halfway around the world or that long since passed. Okay, that's the liberal part taken care of. Now it's time to have a look chat with my friend.
I wish he would take that advice. I wish that he would actually focus on domestic issues. This is a big problem with the left in the United States and the West in general, where they are so defeatist on the national domestic front that they get so focused on foreign policy when they have absolutely no control over what happens. When
They don't control over most things.
wages are rising, housing is inaccessible, mental health care in general is inaccessible, and they could absolutely get involved in local politics, municipal politics. They could change these things. They could make a big change in the lives of so many people in their local communities. But instead,
Potentially, no. Many countries don't give funding to local governments. They just don't have the money.
they continuously launch into like these long-winded defenses of North Korea and other totalitarian dictatorships. Wait. The most surveilled cities in the world.
China is
Number 1, China. Number 2, China. London, England is number 3. Number 4, China. Number 5, China.
England is that's just put England is a very weird. It's way. it's similar, interestingly, to China, which is very funny to me. Like the fact that it's like, oh, so people are like China's socialist. And it's like the closest nation comparable to it when it comes to its kind of domestic policy is like kind of in a sense England. It doesn't. It will use its police on protesters, and it'll use its police on people who are trying to unionize. England, it will have massive surveillance. England, it's very odd. London, I think, is a bit of an odd deal because while it is controlled by the government, it is very much so, almost like its own nation.
And number 6, China. Number 7, China. Number 8, China. Number 9, China. Number 10, China.
Yeah.
Jeez, who would have thought?
Friends on the Western left. The right does a very good job at presenting a unified front. The capitalist class and the forces of reaction are incredibly powerful in the imperial core. The left is already on the back foot, and we have been for many, many years. This is why it's frankly absurd how much infighting goes on among the left. Social democrats sniping at tankies for being authoritarian doesn't do the movement any good. Funnily enough, the label authoritarian is never applied to
Political criticism is not infighting.
Don't say the label authoritarian is only because that's just not true. Okay, as I said, like Turkmenistan is an example.
And tankies are not part of the left. Second thought is closer to a fascist than he is a leftist. Like he is calling China, which is a state capitalist country, a socialist country.
Yeah.
Where the only thing to him that is socialist is that they have a totalitarian one-party state
Honestly, I get the North Korea thing, I get the US thing. I do not get the China thing.
that has its fingers in every facet of society, even controlling how many people are allowed to have children.
successful socialist projects. The ones that fail were somehow more pure. But the moment a new system takes steps to ensure the security of their people and their
Oh, sorry. It's only about a successful one. Sorry. Apologies. I thought you were just going to say that it's only socialist nations, because that's just not true. I mean, like, just not. Because would you label as, oh, it is labeled as authoritarian? Okay, but there are billions of people on this planet. If at least one of them labels any country as authoritarian, then boom, it's not socialist. Then boom, it's not every socialist nation, not just socialist nations. Anyway.
project. They're labeled authoritarian. I think part of this is that there's a lack of understanding among Western self-professed leftists regarding what it actually takes to change the status quo across an entire country. Every revolution, including bourgeois revolutions like the American.
Yeah, so it's important to point this out. Absolutely. If he was just trying to make a point that the US does all of these things too, why did he not mention Nazi Germany, Franco's Spain, Mussolini's Italy? Why are none of the fascist historical countries mentioned?
Because we all agree that they're bad. Or not that they're bad, but we all agree that they're authoritarian. Including a good chunk of people who love those nations. You know. They like to be authoritarian.
Because it's a defense of Stalinism. This has nothing to do with authoritarianism. It's obfuscating what the term authoritarianism means in order to advocate for
No,
Stalinism.
it's anti-American. But it's
One are authoritarian by default. Those in power will never give up their power without struggle. They're not going to let you vote out the very system that benefits them. To understand the nature of revolution a little better, let's go back to the man himself. No, the other one. His sugar daddy. There we go. Friedrich Engels. This large beard, a brilliant little piece called On Authority. It's like a page long. None of you have any
Oh boy, this is the classic one that all the tankies use.
excuse not to read it. It's linked below. But here's the part that I think is most applicable to this video. Have these gentlemen ever seen a revolution? A revolution is certainly the most authoritarian thing there is. It is the act whereby one part of the population imposes its will upon the other part by means of rifles, bayonets, and cannon. Authoritarian means if such there be all. And if the victorious party does not want to
not necessarily. If I'm a person who is in power, but I'm an extreme minority, but I am, in power. And by extreme minority, I want to make it very clear, it means I'm the wealthy people. Then, technically speaking, no, it's not. Like, it's literally just people saying, oh, we want to vote democratically. And me going, no. Then, in that case, that revolution wouldn't technically be authoritarian, because it would be democratic. It would just be democratic with weaponry.
well, in vain.
Same as, when someone goes, oh, there's that cult keeps stealing our children and killing them. We're against that. It's also illegal. Let's stop him. And then the police enter and
maintain this rule by means of the terror which it arms inspired in the reactionists. With
bit of an extreme example. I'm just saying that, technically speaking, a revolution isn't necessarily authoritarian because it can be democratic. Just because it's forced against a minority population. It would just be similar to the police, which is expanding into everyone is like the police.
the Paris Commune lasted a single day, it had not made use of its authority of the armed people against the bourgeois. Should we not, on the contrary, reproach it for not having used it freely enough? Therefore, either one of two things. Either the anti-authoritarians don't know what they're talking
Okay, I'm gonna stop here and explain why he is using this out of context. He is quoting something about the French Revolution and talking about the Republicans rising up against the monarchists with means of force through a revolution. Engels was not talking about using terror to keep the citizens of North Korea from having opinions that are not 100% in line with the party.
about, in which case they're creating nothing but confusion, or they do know, and in that case they are betraying the movement of the proletariat. In either case, they serve the reaction. While it might not feel good to be called out from beyond the grave, it's so important that we understand what Engels was talking about here, because it's still true today. If a mass of people
Okay, yes. I said French Revolution said Paris Commune might have.
decide they're done with the current oppressive system, rise up, build something new, and then fail to protect the gains they've made, their product will be destroyed. We've seen it many times throughout history. The reactionary elements in society won't go away, and people with wealth and power before the revolution will still have that wealth. Will likely fled somewhere like the US where they advocate for military or CIA intervention.
This is what I mean. Conflating every single person who's ever fled a totalitarian government that calls itself socialist as some sort of rich right winger. And that's not even, that's not true. That's so far from true.
I
And
will say, to be fair, you do have things where it's like, well, they're not rich, but they are right. They do believe in the wealthy having all the resources. They're not rich themselves, though. That at that point is like, well, is that person? Can you chuck that person in with the wealthy rich people, the wealthy right wingers? Can you chuck a right winger who believes those wealthy people should be in power with the right with the wealthy? You know what I mean?
literally just ends up becoming victim blaming. Like, you were born in a country that suppressed your rights. For whatever reason, you decided to flee for freedom. Well, guess what? You are a piece of shit class traitor. You are a Gasano. You're rich as fuck, and you deserve to die. That is basically what people like second thought believe. I'm sure you would be far more masked off if it wasn't being recorded as a well-polished propaganda video.
This was the case in Chile in 1973, when the democratically
If I have a business idea, and I'm like, well, my nation doesn't agree with me making millions, but I don't have millions now, so in that scenario, would I be included in that, or would I not?
its socialist president Salvador Allende failed to take preventive measures to ensure the vicious reactionary class and their US-based co-conspirators couldn't undermine them. Long story short, the Chilean right wing launched a US backed and US-funded coup to overthrow the government, eliminate Allende, and install a fascist military dictatorship that plunged the country into recession and suffering for decades. In order to avoid this happening, a budding socialist projects were
Yeah, he's completely right about this part. The annoying thing with him is that he is right about a lot of his criticisms of the US, but as I said, and tried to hammer home throughout my reaction to this video, is that the takeaway that he wants you to have is that China is based. Which is not what you should be taking away from it. When you see that the United States is currently and historically participating in great acts of injustice against its own people, it should be a wake-up call to get involved in the politics in your own country.
project requires the police, it requires the shutting down of reactionary outlets, the banning of certain kinds of speech. There's a reason Germany banned everything related to Nazis, for example, because they wanted to keep that sentiment from spreading as much as possible. It requires an intelligence apparatus to listen for terrorist plots, which were all too common post-revolution. In East Germany, the reactionaries would routinely attempt to blow up civilian train lines. It requires prisons to keep these people off the streets. And historically speaking, the socialists have been much better at using prisons for rehabilitation rather than just packing human beings like robots do in the US.
What? So wait. No, he can't be
Which socialist nations are we talking about?
doing this, can he? Like, he's actually just, the political dissident camps. He is literally just defending them. When a lot of the people...
To be fair, once again, this is how propaganda works, though. Second Thought never said North Korean camps. He just said socialists. Are you implying North Korea is socialist?
US.
Yeah.
And historically speaking, the socialists have been much better at
Are you implying that North Korea is one of the socialists? They're not. So how could you say something like that? That is propaganda, propagandic language at least. But to be fair, it seems like he could argue that, you know, like, well, you know, I would of course react to that by saying, well, which socialist nations? Because most of them have not been socialist.
using prisons for rehabilitation rather than just packing human beings like robots do in the US.
What? So wait. No, he can't be doing this, can he? Like, he's actually just, the political dissident camps. He is literally just defending them. When a lot of the people, as I said, the North Korean camps, they don't know why they're there. They're not terrorists. I'm sure some of them actually did have plans to overthrow the government. But this idea that all of them were agents against the state is ridiculous. That is the kind of paranoia that these kinds of countries instill by trying to have an iron fist and rule over all of their people in every facet of their lives.
As I said, though,
These things may not be morally correct, but like it or not, they are necessary. And that's something that every system has agreed on. I would love nothing more than to see an alternative work, but it never has. Maybe one day I'll be proven wrong. That would be amazing.
So fucking mask off. So we know he defended the gulags. We know that he would defend the black bagging of Naomi Wu.
and had
Because,
said in his other video, "Don't worry, rich people, you won't be going to prison as long as you keep in line. But you won't go to prison for all the murders you did when you were the wealthy."
What is the point?
And
If
also
he said
defended owning multiple homes, which to me is just a very odd thing for someone who calls himself a socialist to do.
all of this stuff, what is the point if he then just agrees with it? Because he's now saying that the surveillance apparatus in the US, if it was a socialist country, would be for the purpose of preventing the overthrow of the government, and it would be justified, and every country on earth agrees with it. It's just incredible self-defeatism. Just earlier in the video, he was saying that authoritarianism doesn't exist, and now he's saying that everything is authoritarianism. There's no point fighting back against it, and this is just the norm, so deal with it.
I don't think it doesn't exist. Just, you know.
But the people who believe it is possible, you need to ask yourself how it's going to happen. We've seen what the people in Tsar Russia had to do. We've seen what the Cubans had to do. We've seen what the Vietnamese had to do. What the Chinese had to do. What the Americans had to do to separate from the British. Your anti-authoritarianism, while I genuinely believe comes from a good place, is
Well, that's the Americans. They kept some things.
handing an easy victory to the capitalist regime. They want you to play by their rules. It's their game. You play.
The Cuban Revolution led to capitalism. The Chinese Revolution led to capitalism. The Vietnamese Revolution led to capitalism. None of these things resulted in capitalism not existing. In fact, capitalism in China is now significantly stronger than it's ever been in the history of China.
Gee, I'm also agree with you.
By their rules, you lose. End of story.
Interestingly, China has a very interesting history when it comes to markets.
One final thing that's important to note is that this anti-authoritarian stance is very much a Western thing, and I think the reason for that is that we here in the Imperial Core are in a very privileged position. We hold these naive beliefs because we don't have any skin in the game. We're not the ones under the boot.
You know that this guy only has one friend that isn't white, and it's Hakeem, and he just listens to every single one of his opinions at face value. That's why he's saying this shit. Like, I'm sorry, but I think if you talk to people of Taiwan, the people of Tibet, they would have a significantly different stance about authoritarians.
He doesn't. Show his face, right?
Yeah, this insults stupid. If his point in the beginning was that the US did all these things too, wouldn't we also be under the boot? It's just incredibly inconsistent.
We're not the ones whose resources are being extracted, or whose homes are being bombed, or whose cities are being occupied by armed invaders in the name of freedom and democracy.
Once again, man, you have an audience outside the US. I really don't like it when people are like, "Oh, but the US is the biggest chunk of audience." Interestingly, that's for some channels not true. I would critique any channel that's like, "Oh, I looked at my analytics." It's like, "Oh, really? You trust analytics? You trust analytics to tell you which country is it?" I don't. As someone who's looking at analytics, as a small YouTuber, I can tell you they're wrong. They're just wrong. It's like, no, that's they're just wrong. Anyway, my point is that I would distrust anyone who says that who trusts your. I would distrust your analytics if I were a big YouTuber. And as well, I would say even if the US is your biggest audience, okay, but think beyond the US, you know, include other countries, because otherwise you'd be like, we aren't. It's like, right. I'm not in the US though.
We have the luxury of condemning others because we've never been on the receiving end. Think for just a moment what would
We.
The reason I just paused is I was trying to think of
buddy.
what it had to do with the countries. Like, historically, Vietnam, yes. Historically, North Korea, yes. But this has nothing to do with China. Nothing to do with the modern state of these countries. I think a lot of times these tankies get so fixated on history that they start ignoring the present. Like, they'll look at China's past and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, Mao said some anti-capitalist stuff." But China today is one of the biggest capitalist imperialist powers on earth.
Yeah.
They are engaging in imperialism in Africa.
True.
They have basically taken over a lot of ports in a lot of different African nations because they give out loans that the countries cannot.
Yeah, they're basically doing the same thing that the British and the French and the Americans do. So they're just, to be second off, yeah, in a way, yeah. America, China's very like America. Shit.
Repay, and then they end up seizing African construction.
They're worse.
be like if your neighborhood was occupied by a foreign military force, doing unspeakable things to your friends and loved ones, taking your belongings, burning homes, torturing people in the name of national security.
Well, I know what he would do if a foreign nation, China, occupied Xinjiang and ended up putting people who believe in the independence of their nation in concentration camps where they are being subjected to forced sterilization, forced abortions, in a genocide. He would say nothing, and his friends would deny it. I know what he would say if Ukraine was fighting back against being occupied by Russia. He would try and tell people that Ukraine needs to immediately disarm, because he did say that.
What means would you
The
resort
whole
to
thing with
against?
Ukraine, by the way, to me makes very little sense. I for all the talk of they're like a lot of the tankies are wrapped up in history. They don't seem to read that much of it if they're saying the Ukraine should be, because no, Ukraine was a colony of Russia, and then the USSR. It was a colony. It wasn't part of Russia until it was morphed into it But there's multiple states and occurrences where Ukraine was not part of it. It was the equivalent of someone saying, no, England deserves to take Ireland because it was part of England's empire for 800 years. It's like, well, first of all, they took it forcibly. They never had a democratic ownership over it, so no. But also, the actual, they didn't want it at the end either. Like, they fought for independence. So, like, fuck off. Like, it's a colony. It's a forced situation where a country has forced itself into a country to take it. You can't defend it by going, oh, but they've had it for years, man. Yeah, they did have it for years. They also had, is it Finland for years? So don't maybe make arguments like that, because, objectively they're kind of stupid. Because yes, in Ireland, we speak English now. We didn't before. In Ukraine, people speak Russian now. They didn't necessarily before. But that's what colonialism is. That's what it does. So don't say, because don't be fucking idiot. At that point, you're just defending colonialism. And by the way, for all people who are against this, to be fair to you, this isn't even like an attack on the USSR. This is literally just an attack on pre-USSR Russia, because it was in the 19th century they took Ukraine. Before the USSR came into existence, so to be fair, it didn't begin with the USSR. It began with in the 19th century with the Russian royal families.
I can't do that for you. What is something to think about? I know this has been kind of a heavy video, and for a lot of you, I'm sure this is the first time you've had to look at your home country more critically. If you're interested in learning more about any of the stuff we talked about, there are links in the description.
Sorry, when I originally looked at this video, I was like, oh, my home country? I mean, no offense taken, but you didn't really address my home country.
We all have a responsibility to choose our words carefully, apply labels correctly.
No, I think most people on the left are actually pretty critical of their home countries. Canada has absolutely committed genocide. They have an atrocious history. And I think the only thing going for them is that people are allowed to protest against it.
Yeah, my country's good.
And hold our own nation to the same standard we expect others to meet. Maybe it's time to retire the word authoritarian and try to engage with the facts more precisely, more honestly, and in good faith.
What, bitch, is he serious?
Mm.
Whenever he was talking about China or North Korea, you notice this, the entire video, whenever he mentioned any of those countries, never a citation. He gave one citation for a Chinese police officer killing people, and it was an incomplete Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
He's not interested in good faith. He's a propagandist of the worst fucking kind. Because he knows that he's being dishonest. I don't think he's stupid.
The China thing is just really insane to me. I just don't get it though. Like it's just not socialist. It's like, at least if it was like, oh, it's kind of socialist, but also like USSR. It's like, I mean, they had some programs. They had some programs that were kind of socialist. If you ignore the fact that it's like similar to the Nazis. It's like, well, they're socialist if you ignore all of the not socialist and actually capitalist things. If you ignore those things, but China's not like socialist in like pretty much any way, really. Like it's as far as I can know from all points, capitalist or fascist.
He's making these videos in order to appeal to the emotion of young baby leftists and radicalize them into becoming Marxist-Leninists. He's presenting.
It's not like a video. Like other kind of by second thought is that good propaganda, right? But the whole thing with China to me just is. But we all know. You can lie all day long about Russia. You can lie all the USSR. You can lie all day long about the likes of North Korea. You can do all that, but you can't lie about China, because China is obviously a capitalist nation. It's literally on all of the things. It's like, oh, would you like an iPhone? There'd be no iPhones under socialism. Well, if someone said that to you and you thought China was socialist, you could just go, but they make the fucking iPhone, so, clearly no. But guess what? Yeah, it's clearly not socialist, because why the fuck would you move your central labor to a country that's socialist? Unless you were like a co-op that was like, well, we don't really want to, pay taxes in this country, we prefer to pay taxes abroad in that country that actually does reinvest its money into its workers. But that's not what China is.
Real atrocities that the US has currently done and done in the past, but he is not willing to show the complete. He's not willing to show this in a complete way. He will not show the data for North Korea. He won't show it for China. He won't show it for any country that the US has ever had a conflict with. But that's why he's so dangerous. That's why all of these hankies are so dangerous. Because they are so loud, they're gaining platforms. And this is where the left is going to look to when they first get involved. They're going to find people like Second Thought, and it's just going to end up radicalizing more people into becoming authoritarians.
And I don't think it helps though that there's a good chunk of the left that does make similar videos to somebody who's right wing. I've made videos reacting to right wingers in the past, and yeah, let's just say, does this background seem to you like the background like a fascist might use? Cause I had a background before that was different to this, and then I got people like I usually don't get that many comments, but I got someone and they definitely thought I was a fascist, or definitely thought I was at least very right wing. I have a feeling it might have been because of the background. This avatar, I don't like the fact that not necessarily don't like it. It's just interesting to me that the people who are very right wing have decided, that's a fucking no. They have selected this avatar that you're looking at on the screen. If you are looking at it on the screen, the avatar that's there, as a thing of the right, and that's a problem because, well, that's what I have. I mean, like I do have a different one. This is one I have before. This is a little bit more of a better one, I think. It kind of works. It works a little bit better, but this is the one I've shifted to, and really, it's not the best. It doesn't look the best when you're trying to do political stuff, because you do look like a bit of a right winger. And I will say, videos that attack the main leftist people do look like videos that are done by people who are pretty right wing. Anyway. Oh, Why is the audio not working?
All right, I'm gonna chill out for a second before the next segment. We got 883 watching and
Okay.
546 likes. We can do better. I believe in us.
Okay, that's that. I think.
You get to sucks count to join the Capital Ranch Discord. There's like a forum thingy. Velvet, also thank you for the 5 tier ones. And Alexa,
So just.
thank you for the $2. Have I understand everything these retarded takes me furious. I grew up in a country where my friend's brother was daily tortured with electricity or released in a false confession. With all publicity in the late 2010s, they think the fucking went on torturing. I really hate people saying it's the same everywhere. Shut the fuck up. It's fucking not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it isn't. It isn't the same.
Yeah.
Like, yes, the United States has admitted they use torture methods in Guantanamo Bay. I think one of the biggest failures of the Obama administration was not shutting down Guantanamo Bay.
I mean,
However,
it's,
these are real
you know,
things that are happening in other countries. They can't be downplayed just because America bad. It just says that you don't give a fuck about other people who exist outside
the
of the
problem
country.
is that once again is this thing of like you're attacking a point of somebody saying, "Oh, America bad," and you're saying, "Well, that doesn't make but you're like, that doesn't make other countries okay." Yeah, it doesn't make them okay, but I don't think that that's necessarily what someone's implying when they say America does it too. They're saying you should do the same to America. You should put sanctions on America. You should do all these things to America as well. But of course, it is still true that America is not as bad as many of these nations.
We live in. Like, if you're willing to accept the suffering of the people,
Although potentially could be in the future. That's not. By the way, I would be wary of that. For all the the things America is, it could definitely get a lot worse in the future, and it is looking like it may well be.
of your own country, can you please apply that to the suffering of people outside of your country? Can you stop looking at everything through a rose-tinted ideological lens? Okay, I gotta say it again. If you haven't liked the stream on YouTube, please like the stream. I appreciate all of it. We just gotta get the likes up to make sure that this video gets algo boosted.
That was okay.
I'm on my Sigma grind set until 2024 starts because I want to see if we can reach the goal of getting 20k subs on the channel. So making sure that the stream always gets as much likes as possible is going to be pretty important.
I don't
And
know.
that plan relies on you, chat.
I mean,
Help me destroy all the tankies.
I would too, but like some other things have being said by
Okay.
some other things like
What can all these videos right
that
I'll
just
look into
feel-
it. I'll look into it later tonight, but I need a bit.
just some things that she has in the past, just and around this time, just haven't. Let's just say I don't necessarily agree with them. They're best. But anyway, is that the reaction finished or?
I actually don't even know who killed you. Like, to be completely honest, there's a lot of people that I've not interacted with in this space, but I'll figure that out later.
Okay. I'm gonna assume that that's it over. Is it?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the 5 tier ones.
Okay. So just to show.
And it's deal with liberals if they don't stand with Palestine. All of the people who were still left in the party under the bus.
In the UK. But yeah, that was a rather good reaction from Keffals there, and yeah, thank you for watching. The reaction video is over now.